Come on in. Hi, my name is Nettie Dokes with Seattle City Lights Apprenticeship and Technical Training Program, and welcome to Netline. I'm here at City Hall where a new display is being set up to celebrate Seattle City Lights' centennial anniversary. The display will be here at City Hall until mid-November. Then it'll move across the street to Seattle Municipal Tower on the arcade level. Please be sure to stop by and visit. In this edition of Netline, you'll see how fellow workers stand on the shoulders of those who came before us at City Light. You'll learn how line workers use competition to hone their skills in preparation for emergency, high up in the power line. You'll also watch a special tool for environmental education is dedicated up along the Skagit River. And finally, you'll get some tips on how to prepare your home in the event of a power failure.
Come on, Ron, you all right, buddy? Hey, Ron. Come on, Ron, I'm on my way out, buddy. Hey, Sean, Ron's not responding.
Pole-top rescue is a skill that every line worker must practice and master. Working high above the ground around high voltage can lead to very scary scenarios, and rescue is very specialized.
Should something arise or something happen, it's always known that we need to take care of each other, because when it comes to actually rescuing people, firefighters or paramedics are not allowed to go where we go and get them out of the electrical hazards.
I'm not getting any pulse. I'm going to take the handline, rig him up, and send him down.
Dedication to knowing the skills needed is demonstrated each year through City Light competition and eventually a statewide contest. The top team is selected in a time and judged scenario. Meet Rugged Ron and Recessa Annie, two important members of Seattle City Light's pole-top rescue competition. Ron is a life-sized and, just as important, life-weight mannequin used for training line workers in rescuing a victim from a dangerous situation, injury involving high voltages and heights. Recessa Annie is the second training mannequin that gives line workers realistic feedback about how they administer CPR. Instruments embedded in Annie measure chest compressions and the amount of oxygen being delivered by those performing CPR. Each mannequin has a role in the competition, simulating a single victim for the three teams that compete. This year's top competitors were Justin Bean and Sean Reynolds. Bean is the climbing member of the team.
We have a tailgate right off the get-go, and at any job that we do, we go through all the different hazards.
After the scenario is laid out, the climber literally leaps into action.
We just assume the absolute worst. Electricity flows through anything. Everything has a certain amount of resistance. Even poles are conductive. So when an accident happens, we're assuming even that's conductive. So you don't want to become a part of that series circuit, have a foot on the ground, have a foot on the pole if it is a conductor, because now you became a path and you're going to become a second victim.
That is the watchword. Don't become the second victim. So the team member on the ground keeps an eye out for hazards.
I go get 911. The first response is always go get professional help. I help my pole partner, by watching his back, making sure that he's aware of all the electrical hazards around him.
In this scenario, the victim may have come in contact with high voltage, which is still a danger. Using a fiberglass pole called an expando stick or pogo stick, the main circuit breaker is pulled, and then the secondary circuits are cut and taped off. Finally, it is safe to approach the victim.
Ron, you okay, bud?
The hand line, which is usually on the pole with a climber, is used for the rescuers to lower Ron to the ground.
After the guy hits the ground, it's to cradle him, be as gentle as possible, putting him on the ground. I go over him, I check to see if there's any other injuries on his body. I'll loosen his belt up. I'm there talking to the guy, to the person that's hurt, reassuring him.
At this point, the action shifts to Recessa Annie.
Not getting any breathing. Give him 2 breaths. Give him 2 breaths.
Reynolds evaluates and starts CPR. When Bean has safely reached the ground, he starts treating the victim for shock. This is something nobody wants to do for real, so competition is the closest way to simulate the urgency and the adrenaline rush of the real thing.
Competition's awesome. It's great going out there and training and being as good as we are and being able to say, hey, we represent Seattle City Light in our pole top rescue competition for the state of Washington.
The North Cascades Environmental Learning Center on the shores of Diablo Lake in North Cascades National Park opened its doors in June 2005, 3 years after the start of construction. On October 8, 2005, people gathered to dedicate a remarkable facility and celebrate a unique partnership, and one the head of the National Park Service believes will be a model for the rest of the country.
The best protection we have in our parks is not through regulation, but through learning. And I truly believe what is going to go on here is going to help. Again, I know you're focused heavily on this area, but you're going to start to have people that are going to come in even from outside this area and other places that are going to start joining you and learning about protecting resources as a whole.
The North Cascades Environmental Learning Center is a residential education facility designed to help people of all ages understand and appreciate the natural world around them. Designed for teaching, exploration, research, and volunteer services, the Learning Center offers first-hand opportunities for learning about the region's natural and cultural history and how to take better care of the land we treasure. The facility has 16 buildings, including classrooms, a research library, 2 laboratories, a dining hall, housing for graduate students and staff, and overnight accommodations for 46. The North Cascades Environmental Learning Center is surrounded by 7 million acres of protected public lands in Washington and British Columbia. In the middle lies the 684,000-acre North Cascades National Park. With 93% of its area designated as wilderness, the park is known for its steep mountains, swift-flowing streams, and tremendous biological diversity. It is one of the most heavily glaciated areas in the contiguous United States. The mountain glaciers, feeding the tumbling Skagit River, gave the area great potential for hydroelectric power. Seattle City Light built 3 dams on a 7-mile stretch of the Skagit between 1918 and 1957.
Seattle City Light history, in my opinion, can sort of be broken up into 2 segments. One has to do with a period of very significant development here in the Skagit area, followed by a period of stewardship that followed on the heels of that very significant period of development. It just so happens that 2005 marks the 100th year anniversary of Seattle City Light's birth. And it's very ironic that this dedication is happening at the same time that we're commemorating 100 years of service to the citizens of Seattle and the surrounding community.
City Light understands its obligations to operate dams in an environmentally responsible way. The utility began working with Skagit tribes and fisheries agencies in the mid-1970s. From that came a plan for fish-friendly dam operation, which went into effect in 1981. Flows from the dams are carefully controlled to protect eggs, juvenile fish, and spawning salmon. And it's working. In the spawning grounds closest to City Light dams, the pink salmon population has increased 4-fold and chum salmon 7-fold since 1985.
It's hard to believe that in this very pristine setting, we are producing energy for a very urbanized area, energy that is used to not only light homes, but also power the industry that makes Seattle the urban center that it is today.
In addition to environmentally sensitive dam operation, City Light agreed to support construction and operation of the North Cascades Environmental Learning Center. Its partners in the project were the nonprofit North Cascades Institute and the National Park Service. The 3 partners broke ground on the project with a tree planting ceremony. Construction began in earnest in 2002. The project was a challenge. The site was remote and access difficult. In fall 2003, severe flooding and rock slides closed portions of the North Cascades Highway and halted construction. Construction resumed in early 2005 and was completed in the spring. In the fall of that year, the partners and the public gathered to celebrate.
The mission of North Cascades Institute is to conserve and restore Northwest environments through education. We're a conservation organization. Education is the tool, the only tool, we have chosen to change the world. It may be slower than some of the other routes we could have picked. Litigation, political advocacy, buying land. But I believe in the long run, and we're here for the long run, this will be the most effective and long-lasting of tools.
This is Dan Williams for Seattle City Light.
Safe, reliable electricity. It's something most of us take for granted until a power failure leaves us in the dark. Seattle City Light understands how hard it is to be without electricity. So when there's an outage, our crews spring into action to find out what went wrong and fix the problem fast. City Light's record of reliability makes us a national leader. We consistently meet our goal of restoring power in 50 minutes or less on average. Lots of things can spark an outage: stormy weather, a car and pole accident, birds and animals touching power lines, or equipment failure. Here's what to do if that happens. This may seem obvious, but the first thing to do is check the circuit breaker inside your home and see if the problem is inside your house. Then check to see if your neighbor's lights are still on. If not, there's probably an outage. Call our power outage hotline at 684-7400 for a recording of all known outages. If your area isn't mentioned, leave your name, address, and phone number. The information we get from customers is essential to figuring out what caused the outage.
Well, what we really need to know is if they have seen or heard anything that would help us determine what the location of that outage is. Because while in many cases we may know that the power's out, if a circuit breaker opens up in our substation, we don't really know why that circuit breaker opened up. Dispatchers in the control center, they are the first responders after hours. If you call in to report an outage, that's who you would talk to, and they would take the information on the outage and they would send some first responders out to make an initial assessment of the extent of the outage and determine what was going to be necessary in order to make repairs, and they would report that. The crew that did that initial response would report all that information back to the dispatcher, and then they would make any other arrangements necessary at that point to make permanent repairs.
Major problems light up the big board right away, while we depend on you to let us know about smaller outages.
Cases where none of the customers can have seen anything that will help us locate the outage, we have to send a crew to the substation to patrol the line from the substation out to its end until they can find what that problem was.
A simple equipment failure or downed line can be fixed in minutes, while some repairs may take hours. The power that comes into your home is fed from one of City Light's many substations located in neighborhoods throughout Seattle. All the substations are connected, so if the lines to one substation are knocked out in a big storm, we can often restore power to your area by rerouting it from another substation.
We have a number of circuits that run out and serve the metropolitan area, and the way the system is designed basically is that the circuits run between two different substations, which give you two different sources of power. So that way, if one of the sources of power is lost, then you can use the other source to restore the power to those people who are experiencing an outage.
On rare occasions, we may not be able to restore power until the next morning, or even days later. That's why it's good to have a power outage kit that includes a flashlight with fresh batteries and glow-in-the-dark stick lights. Avoid candles, oil lamps, or anything with an open flame. A portable radio and wind-up clock may come in handy. Make sure you have plenty of stored food and water in case of an earthquake or other catastrophe. Most hot water tanks will retain heat for up to 24 hours. If you expect a long outage, use hot water sparingly. Keep the refrigerator and freezer closed as much as possible to keep food fresh. A full refrigerator will provide safe temperatures for up to 6 hours. A full freezer for up to 2 days. If in doubt, throw it out.
We're still without power.
And falling power lines gave one of our photographers a fright of his life this morning.
Yeah, well, that was
Downed
scary
wires are
anyway.
deadly. Always keep a safe distance and don't approach anything in contact with the downed wire.
Our photographer
Call Seattle City Light right away. Or if you see sparks or a fire, call 911. During storms, you should expect bumps, which are momentary outages caused by branches brushing against power lines. Proper tree trimming is essential to preventing bumps and fallen power lines. Let us know if you need a temporary disconnect or advice about tree trimming. With your help and a little cooperation from Mother Nature, you can count on your Seattle City Light to keep the lights on. This is Eric Polson reporting for Seattle City Light.
Thanks for watching this edition of Netline. I'm Nettie Dokes with Seattle City Light.